There's only a handful of snowboard companies that make snowboards in America, and today we're gonna check one of them out. We are gonna check out Gilson Snowboard, but this is not their warehouse. They don't make it out of this RV. They make it inside of this massive warehouse. So today we are going to not only explore the warehouse, but we're gonna make a snowboard. I've never seen the process. I've never been a part of the process. So I'm so excited to go inside Gilson's warehouse and build a Gilson board and show off something really cool that they're now doing with Gilson boards as well. Hi guys, I'm with Nick, the creator of Gilson, and today you're gonna walk us through how to make a snowboard.
Yeah.
So what's step one to building a board?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so this is how we get started here. This is a big block of Pennsylvania poplar, and you can see that, what's up Otis? This is Otis. You can see that it's been glued together with a bunch of different planks of wood here, and the reason we do that is because the wood's obviously a natural material, and so sometimes the grain is pulling this way, sometimes pulling this way, sometimes up, sometimes down. And so when you use a bunch of different pieces of wood glued together, it's like law of averages, it averages out. And some people are taking these boards up to 70, 80 miles an hour. So super important that it doesn't warp and it holds its shape, of course. So this is how we get started. The very next thing that we need to do is we need to turn this block into 13 different snowboards. Yeah, so we're gonna run it through the resaw machine, which is then gonna slice this into, it's like slicing a block of cheese. So we're gonna slice this into 13 different cores out of each block. And the cool thing is this wood comes to us super locally. It grows literally right down the road. All Pennsylvania poplar, sustainably grown, sustainably harvested. Look, wood's an amazing natural resource. It has carbon sequestration attributes built in. It literally sucks in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, puts it into the wood as it grows, spits out oxygen from the trees. And so, if you're harvesting wood in Europe, shipping it to mainland China to press it into snowboards and skis, and then shipping it back to the US and Europe, you've taken what's an amazing natural resource and baked in this insane carbon footprint. So, being located close to the forest that we're using, working with poplar that grows super straight, super fast, really sustainably has been an incredibly important piece of the business model, and definitely why we're located here in Pennsylvania. So, this machine kind of scares the hell out of me.
This is the one that chops it into 13 snowboards.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look here, you can see this just massive bandsaw blade. So this is a huge blade that spins at an insane velocity. Let me, so you can see this thing.
Man.
Yeah. So that spins that blade incredibly fast. It's several inches wide. It runs the core blocks through here, slices them into snowboard size cores before heading over to the CNC.
Which is these guys right here.
Yep, you got it. So Otis, back up. Just careful not to cross this blue line. So this is a CNC robot, and basically what this thing is doing is middle school math on steroids. So you remember graphing where it's like, X2, Y3, and then Z is the vertical axis. This here, if you look at this table where the board is sitting, this is the X-axis, this is the Y-axis, up and down is Z. And so we can literally map in three-dimensional digital space any shape we want. Like literally you can take a photograph of someone's face, vectorize it, and this thing will then do 3D subtraction. So you literally carve a statue with this if you wanted to. We obviously use it to make rad snowboards, but it's like 3D printing in reverse. It's 3D subtraction.
That's how you guys are able to create your soft edge.
Yep, that's how we create all the everything from where the inserts are to the three-dimensional tooling, and obviously we're now making flat-base boards, but this machine is still making flat-base boards for us because it's doing the perimeter cut, it's the inserts, it's everything. This thing is accurate to 2/1000ths of an inch. Believe it or not, at insanely high speeds. It changes its own bits. It's I remember back in the day I used to shape these by hand.
That's so cool, dude.
So these are snowboard cores that are in production right now. So you can see that resaw machine sliced it into the thinner cores. The CNC robot then came and profiled this loop here. We then poured in a high density hydrophobic material sidewall, and that's what keeps moisture from getting into the wood core. So this is almost exactly 7% moisture content right now in the wood. You don't want it to be less than that because it then gets really brittle. If you get more than that, then it's heavier, but you also then have a hard time bonding to epoxy, etc. etc. So you want to maintain the moisture content of the wood very specifically right around 7%. And then once the fiberglass and layup happens, plus this hydrophobic sidewall barrier, it's then fully encased inside the snowboard. And that's really important because if you can get moisture, it's like if someone starts having a D-lam, which is a real, hands down the worst thing that can happen to a snowboard, as you know very well.
It's the death of a board.
Yeah, it is the death of a board. And you can super glue it and epoxy it back together a bunch of times, but it's never the same. And what happens there is that you let it go out during the day, moisture from the snow gets into the wood core of the board and it freezes, and then at night you take it back to your hotel room or condo or your house and it thaws, and the next day it freezes, thaws, freezes, thaws. That is literally the physical process that made the mountains, right? It can literally shape mountains and it can definitely destroy a board. So that freeze-thaw cycle is really important, that there's a totally serious water barrier from the outside elements.
Save some stuff, like the plane. I'm not sure what you wanted to shoot and everything.
Yeah. All right.
Like that.
Yeah, well, should we plane a board right now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Can we plane one now? Okay. CNC cut this channel and you can see that this needs to be planed down to make it totally flat. And so this is where the sidewall is meeting the pour. And he's got digital calipers there that are gonna make sure we get it to truly like the exact right thickness. To keep nerding out, the flexibility of a snowboard is impacted by thickness to the squared power. So even just like the teeniest little bit thicker in the wood core separates the fiberglass layers just a little bit, and the impact on flexibility is squared. So like the tiniest changes have huge impacts on flex.
I didn't know that.
Stop by.
So right here, he is taking those calipers, he's measuring the thickness, and then he's going back to this digital planer, and you can see that this table actually raises and lowers up against what's called a helix blade. And when we turn this off, maybe we open this top up and show you, but it's like, instead of a planer with flat teeth, this thing has like hundreds of teeth in a helix shape. Crazy. We're taking down thickness from the top here, and you can see this is getting closer. Either way, it'll get CNC'd by that robot over there, so it doesn't have to be totally down. Is that done? It's done. All right, so you can see this blade here.
Yeah.
So instead of it being like most planers are one bar like this has teeth going around in a spiral, and so it's making incredibly even, uniform cuts here. So this is the channel that's cut here now, ready for the sidewall material to be glued in before it goes on to the planer to get down to the uniform thickness, then on the CNC to get it shaping. When all is said and done in this room, we end up with snowboard cores that look like this. And so you can see this is a bounty hunter coming to life here. This looks like a wide model. The inserts are now in. It's missing one insert on each side, which we'll see in layup. We're going to use that for alignment, actually. The sidewalls are fully in. It's like now paper thin in parts, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And the profiling. Yeah, the profiling on here is such that it's thin in the nose, thin in the middle, and thin on the tail, but thicker where your bindings are. And you can see the beginnings of the Gilson Flex profile are starting to be evident, but obviously it won't be strong or fully ready for the snow until it's completely encased in fiberglass and composites.
You guys can also see that this deck is going to have their soft edge technology, if I can get the right angle.
Yep, and then this one will not.
That one is a flat, which is so cool that they now are doing both, because everyone knows Gilson for their soft edge.
Yeah.
You don't know about Gilson yet. Traditional board.
That's right. Yeah, brand new. And then you can see like really where things get crazy with the three-dimensional shaping. You can see this one has the POW channel in the middle.
Yeah.
This is obviously the powder board, and huge nose, the funnel here, the funnel snow in, rooster tails it out the back. Yeah, you know, this thing is designed to have a ton of surface area in the nose, so the nose always wants to float. And then the whole point of a swallowtail, we get asked this all the time, it's like, why is there this V? And really the purpose of that V is to remove surface area. So the nose wants to float and the tail wants to sink. And it has the effect of keeping your tips up.
Yeah.
Should we cruise over to the art studio?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
This is where you get to pick your design and put it onto the base and the top sheet of the board. The cool thing is I actually got to put my logo on one of their decks, so I don't have to slap a sticker on it. It's already there forever.
All right, so sublimation is, in Shop Tour Bingo, we always ask people what sublimation is, and some people will remember it from back in middle school science. But so sublimation is the process of going from a solid to a gas, skipping the liquid phase. So what we're doing here is that this ink actually starts as a liquid. You can see these are sublimation inks here going into this large format sublimation printer. This is a Bounty Hunter that's being printed onto a waxy substrate paper here, and that ink is drying into a solid ink sitting on top of this paper. What we're going to then do is we're going to gasify that ink. Just like dry ice looks like it's smoking or vaporizing, it's technically sublimating. It's going from a solid block of ice to a gaseous vapor without ever melting into a puddle. So with a huge amount of heat and pressure, we're going to cause that ink to sublimate. And so these presses here get up, this is well over 300 degrees here, this plate is super hot. And what AJ did here is that this is a base material that's still cooling so that it doesn't crinkle. He's leaving it here for a minute. And he put that, it started out as just a flat piece. Started out as just a flat piece like this. He then put the sublimation ink paper on top of it, pressed it up into this hot plate just like a panini for a very specific amount of time. That ink gasified, jumped to the gaseous state, rose up into the pores of the base, and then it re-solidified. So if you think about that, it's not like paint that's sitting on top of something, it is literally infused inside. So when you stone grind or if you scratch your base, you'll keep seeing the artwork deep into the base material.
This is why he's doing the talking, by the way, guys. Because if I had to regurgitate any of what he just said, I wouldn't have been able to do it, guys.
I don't know, man.
It's really cool to see in the fact that if you do get a core shot or take a chunk out of your base, that the design's still going to be there and not be stripped away, unless you get probably a super duper duper gnarly one.
Yeah, this
is cool.
Yeah. And the other thing that's probably relevant to note is that if you are in a mass production environment, you'd never run sublimation because it is insanely expensive. And so a big part of this is being able to do super vibrant, really high quality artwork where every single board moving through the factory can be different than the one before it and different than the one after it. So if you're doing screen printing, it's like relatively, compared to sublimation at least, simpler designs. You're screening, and to set up those screens, you can't do one board, right? You got to do hundreds or more likely thousands, yeah.
And that's why we were able to slap my logo onto the design.
Yeah.
Sick.
Pull that handle.
Oh man, I wasn't ready.
So when a board comes out of sublimation, the first thing that we need to do is we router the base into the shape of the snowboard, and then we bend these steel edges. And this is what the inside of a steel edge looks like. So we bend these steel edges to the perimeter shape of the snowboard and then tack them on, getting them ready for layup. So here you can see this one's a little further along. This is what edges look like when they come to us.
This is the start.
So these are like hundreds and hundreds of pounds. They then get bent into these shapes and then put on the board. These boards here are staged for layup. So all of the materials are coming together. One of the craziest things is after the fire, when the last factory burned down.
By the way, that's why they're in this one. I think I mentioned that earlier, but their last one burnt to the ground.
Yeah, and I mean, we're like bigger and stronger for it. I mean, it just like, I already knew it was all about the people, but man, like the way this team rallied, the way the community rallied, the way the entire snowboard and ski community got our backs to that was just like,
insane.
I'm floored, man. It literally gives me chills and like brings tears to my eyes still to this day. It's crazy. What's interesting, the last factory, materials would follow a line through production, right? And it was like more like spaghetti because we were in this like teeny little building with processes weaving through these different rooms. But it basically would be like one step after the other. And when the factory burned down and this crew was here, and obviously we couldn't be building boards for a number of months, we had consultants being like, let us help you design your new factory. And we looked at it, we're like, look, we could pay these folks to come in and like try to teach them our process so they could teach us to how to make it better. And what I realized, like, who could possibly know this better than the people who build boards on the floor every single day? And so instead we didn't bring in a single outside consultant, and our folks on the shop team who build every day got together and started like dialing into spreadsheets, running numbers, running time trials, and thinking of these different ways that they could lay out this new facility, because now they knew we were moving into this big open space where we were no longer confined in what was historically like an auto garage, right? We were like going through like literally processes like in truck bays, right? And so what they figured out how to do, which is just crazy, right? And it's like I never would have figured this out. What our folks figured out that they could do is, instead of designing this like a line going through production, following a linear flow, that they could build a facility that's actually mapped out like a wheel, where each one of the spokes is a process that feeds the hub. And so when you think about artwork, that's coming into the hub this way, wood shops coming into the hub this way, edges are coming in this way,
this is
right?
the
And then this spoke goes out to finishing, right? And then it goes over to shipping, right, throughout the other spoke. And so literally our shop looks like a bicycle wheel, and instead of a line now.
That's so
like
cool.
They were explaining this to me, I was like, what the hell? Like, that is awesome.
That's so cool.
The hub of the wheel is layup. And so if you think about the business, right, like that's where all these materials come together. So we've got a base here, top sheet, wood core is in here getting ready for layup with the base in there. And then it will meet the fiberglass composite materials, the VDS rubber dampening system, which we'll go check out over here. But these are all the pieces coming into the central hub to then go to layup. And then we basically set the metronome of the business with layup. And that's really where the board is born. All right, so we can like gloss over this, or we can really nerd out.
Is there a happy medium?
Yeah, we can do a happy medium. We can do a happy medium. So our presses look different than any other presses in the world. All of this machinery, it's entirely built in-house. If you look at this room, like all the way down here with all 16 of these press cavities, plus this reservoir over here, plus this inline boiler tank, and these are actually residential well pumps. So this is what like pumps water out of a well into someone's house to pressurize the system. This is all one interconnected machine from this racking system, and so all of this is basically being used to assemble and build boards, but it's like one giant room-sized machine. So it's probably relevant to share what the industry standard looks like. And so the way a board is normally pressed is that you take a silicon heating blanket, which is essentially like a space heater, but really flat, and it's like a hot blanket, right?
Yeah.
But really, it gets really hot. And what you do is you blast electricity through that heat blanket. That goes through, a heat blanket is really just a resistor. So you blast electricity through the resistor, that kinetic energy from the moving electrons going through the resistor converts into heat energy, and then that heats the snowboard and starts the cure process of the epoxy, which is technically an exothermic reaction. So heat will actually accelerate the chemical reaction that is leading to the curing epoxy in the fiberglass. All this to say, you basically ram electricity through. You guys know how expensive it is to run a space heater at night, right? Like, you're basically ramming electricity through a resistor. That's then heating up the board and curing the epoxy and fiberglass layers. What we figured out how to do is to, instead of using electricity going through resistors, this is a Kevlar reinforced bag here. This actually took me 6 months to source this material. This is a big hose that is, it's 18 inches lay flat. It's the same material that was used to pump water out of New Orleans after Katrina. There's like huge high volume water hoses that are incredibly strong. You can get this thing up to 300 PSI and drive a combine over it and it's not gonna bust. It's just insane. So if you feel this here, this is hot. And so instead of using a silicon heat blanket, we're running hot water through this hosing, and that's then heating up the board. And the reason that's relevant is because water has such a high specific heat capacity, it holds on to that temperature. So I know you said go medium. I don't know if I can go medium here. But
if you're in this video, you're in this video. Here we go. Subscribe. Let's get this.
And so basically, if you're running it through the heating blanket, like all the other presses out there in the world, to my knowledge, then you put your next board in from the day and you start from scratch, right? You pull the board out, all that heat then dissipates into the atmosphere. You put your next one in and you turn the electricity back on to heat it back up again. With this, the 20th board of the day is borrowing energy from the last 19. because as this comes out, that water carries that heat energy back into this reservoir, which is really a farm sprayer, right? And so that farm sprayer is really, it's both the reservoir for heated water, but it's also turned into a battery essentially, right? Because that's where we're storing the heat, and it's also a radiator, so it's what keeps this room warm in the winter too. So dual purpose.
Yeah, so you're getting more out of your energy.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're
recycling that energy, exactly.
So
and people will often ask too, they're like, why don't you insulate your copper pipes? And then it'll make the machine even more efficient. And we explain that the machine actually is so efficient right now, it's already a problem. And that we don't insulate these because we're actually trying to throw the heat off.
It's too much heat.
It's too much heat. And so when the water comes in here, let's say at 180 degrees, which is very close to accurate, by the time it goes through this bag, heats up the board. It's in a constant circular flow. And here's the next one going in. And by the time it comes out the other end, back into the racking system, all the way back to the boiler that's going to maintain the temperature, it's only lost 2 degrees. So now it's 178. And that boiler is a smart boiler, so it says the smallest flame I can possibly fire is going to heat this thing up past my set temp of 180. And so it says I'd rather be too cold than too hot, right? And so it crashes. And then it gets down to about 140, and it would say, shoot, I'm supposed to be 180, fire it back on, it heats the water back up. So you'd end up with this like sinusoidal temperature profile, which is no bueno for production. So what we've done is we've taken an Olympic-sized swimming pool's heat exchanger that like heats the pool, put it into this racking system. So on the return loop, it goes through that swimming pool heat exchanger and dumps some of its heat into the reservoir. So then the water coming out of this end goes back through the heat exchanger back into the boiler, now at 170. Then the smallest flame from that boiler heats it up to exactly 180, spits it back out, and this board continues to see exactly 180 degree flow of temperature with the water moving through this bag, and that heat is not dissipated and wasted. It radiates off these pipes to heat the room, but when it goes to the heat exchanger, it dumps it back into the reservoir. So the next press of the day is borrowing from that same energy. And the crazy thing is we'll come in on a Monday and that thing's still warm from last week. So like production on Monday is borrowing from last week's energy.
That's so cool.
With water.
It's cool to me as just an outsider that you guys are creating your own machines, your own ways. Like, it's not just like, oh, let's make a snowboard. It's like, okay, we got to make the things that make the snowboard too.
Yeah.
So it's just so cool.
Well, I don't get any credit for this, man. I'm surrounded by people that make me feel slow and run circles around me every day. Yeah, these people are incredible.
I've never felt so dumb in a snowboard factory.
Trust me, man, me too. Me too. So you can see now, this is that residential well pump. So this is not pressurized yet, but you can see it's increasing in pressure.
Yeah, you can literally
see it's like closing the gap here. So this is literally over the surface area. It's going to put a tractor trailer's worth of weight on top of this snowboard.
That's crazy. Look at it go.
And so you can see this is, yeah, seriously, man.
Look, this is a hybrid camber shape, by the way, guys. So that means there's camber under each foot, and then it's got the reverse camber in the center, which helps you with like putter and the flex of the board.
And now we're under pressure.
That's what I can talk about with snowboards.
Yeah, dude, hell
That's where
that is
my knowledge.
It's the science. So now you can feel this. This is water that's basically as hard as concrete. It's pressurized to an insane degree.
That's so cool.
I talked to someone a number of years ago. This is just a crazy story. You know, sometimes when you talk to someone who's so insanely smart, you don't know if they're a genius or like absolutely crazy. and this guy, Michael, he goes, how hard are you pressing your boards? And this is at SIA in Denver, and I tell him that we're pressing at like 82 PSI. This is maybe 8-9 years ago, right? And he goes, oh man, you are pressing, you're breaking the nanomolecular cross-linking in your layup. I was like, what? So I circled back around, talked to a biomolecular engineer, and was like, what does he mean about spaghetti, mac and cheese, and breaking nanomolecular cross-linking? And it turns out, I now understand this kind of, but when your epoxy is curing, it's making a crystalline structure, and if you so if you press too hard, the cross-linking gets pressed out of it. You break the cross-linking, and so there's an optimal pressure that you want to press at. And if you put your fork into a bowl of spaghetti and lift it up, you're going to lift up, you know, almost the whole bowl with you. But if you put it into elbow mac and cheese and you lift it up, you know, it mostly falls off the fork and you maybe get a couple of pieces. And so the idea is in that epoxy, we want to maintain a crystalline structure that's more like spaghetti on a molecular level than
Spaghetti
like
mac and cheese. That's how we make bolts.
Michael Trotman, that guy's a G.
That's cool. But before it goes to the press, there's a lot that's got to happen, right?
Yep, exactly. So is this the layup here? Oh, okay, we're gonna do this while we build your board, dude. Okay,
let's go.
Cool. So the very first thing that we're gonna do, you can see that this is the base that's down here. We've got the steel edge fully tacked around. This is a 152 Bounty Hunter. This is your wood core, and you have the top sheet with, can you hold that up for a second? I wanna make sure that we've got the one with the custom. Dude.
Yeah, there it is.
Evolve. Buckhouse Industries.
It's
this is
a
gonna
subtle
be sick.
little touch to your guys' design.
I really love it, man. This is gonna be so sick. Should we make a snowboard?
Yeah, let's make a snowboard.
All right. Do you want to switch? You want me to do the filming? Cool.
I can double glow. All right.
Dude, this camera is sick.
That's the Ace Pro. It's really good with low light. It's got a 1 and a 1/2 inch sensor in it.
Wow.
So like, you could go super duper fancy cameras and like really get into that, but like that's not what I'm good at. Like I'm good at the storytelling. I'm good at the like snowboarding, the riding, whatever. So like, just give me a camera that can get a decent job. I say I'm an out of the box kind of guy. Like I want to take it out of the box. I want it to work. And so.
Cool. All right. So what he's doing is he's actually mixing epoxy. So that's a 2-part system. And if you look at that static mixer, you can see these like lines in it like this. It's literally halving every time. It's like cutting the deck every time as the epoxy is squeezed through there, giving it a perfect mix in that bucket. And then you're gonna wet out these steps, and then this fiberglass is actually already wetted out. And if you walk with me over here, you can see how this happens. This is like an old Amish laundry machine, basically. So there's a bath of epoxy in here.
Oh, okay.
The dry fiberglass cloth runs through, gets squeezed out, and then this way we make sure that the exact amount of epoxy per square inch of fiberglass is completely dialed in. And that's what allows us to get both a super strong but also as light as possible snowboard for that strength to weight ratio.
All right.
All right, Matt, will you...
Why am I so nervous? I'm like, I'm gonna mess it up. It's the D-Lam. It's my fault.
No, the crazy thing is that this board...
The first time too.
Yeah.
So basically, I just want to make sure it's a nice solid layer. No dry spots.
Yep.
No dry spots.
No dry spots. Make sure the edges are totally covered. It's okay if you go a little bit off.
Yeah, if you notice in the teeth, whenever you wipe it over and it like fills in there, you still kind of see like it's dry. But you want it looking like that, where it's just nice.
Super wet.
It's kind of crazy to think that in not so long from now, this board, you're going to be ripping down the mountain on this thing.
I'm going to be sending it.
Oh, that was sick. That one felt good. So this is your first layup, right, Jonathan?
I've never done anything like this.
So cool. So this next material that's going to go down, and just careful not, epoxy, dude, is so crazy. If you get it on your clothes, like you think that you're getting it out and you're like picking at it to get it out, and then you're like, I got it, and then there's just like a hole in your clothes. This is a material called VDS for vibration dampening system, which I think is mainly good marketing. What it really does is it creates a barrier between the steel edge and the fiberglass cloth, which is here, and it prevents spider webbing in the glass. And the way that works is like, you know how on a bridge there are links, like when you're going over the bridge, like da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. So those are links that allow the bridge to expand and contract with the different temperatures to keep it from freezing, you know, and then thawing and then crumbling. No dry spots, exactly. And so this VDS foil allows for there to be just like literally the slightest amount of play between the steel edge and the fiberglass, making sure that there's some ability for it to move. And it's not going to stay here. Once it's totally wetted, it's going to go and totally cover the edges.
How many layers of fiberglass? You do 2?
2. This is a 19-ounce triaxial fiberglass layer, and triaxial means that if you look at it's like it's a woven.
I was about to say, like, anyone in the audience to know what triaxial means.
Yeah.
put it in there.
Yeah.
But explain it to me, I want to know.
Yeah, so nice. So if you look at this weave, like fiberglass is actually woven together by big looms.
Yeah.
And I went and visited the factory, the Vector Ply factory that we get this from, and the looms are literally like the size of this room. It's so crazy with like big things like weaving in all the time. And so a triaxial weave means that I think you can see this on camera, but you can see how there's like there's an axis that's this way, and then the zero. So basically it's negative 45, 45, and 0. And so there's 3 axes, triaxial. And that like really helps with torsional
twist.
Exactly. And so remember the 2 missing inserts from here and here? Yeah, got those on here. And so these were put in using a jig that was cut by the CNC. So with hand work, right? All done by hand. But because the jigs are cut by the CNC, those are in the right place to 2,000ths of an inch accuracy to make sure that, done by hand, so to make sure that the wood core goes on top of the base in exactly the right place, because you definitely don't want them crisscross.
Yeah.
And so what he's doing here is he's just cutting a little hole in the fiberglass to expose that insert.
Make it wet.
This is one of my favorite steps in layup because you see the wood go from, it's like, you know, when you have a rock at the beach and you toss it in the water and it looks all shiny.
Yeah.
The wood starts to take on that. So it's just wetting out the wood here before we flip over the core to make sure that we get a really good bond between the base of the core and the fiberglass. Yeah. So getting that perfectly lined up. Boom. It's the bottom half of a snowboard.
Oh, now we gotta do the top. Lots of
flippers.
So you can see that last insert's now there.
Now, what, you don't want to get it into the inserts?
That's totally fine. They've got a little cover.
Yeah, they got a cover on them. Okay.
Little cover, and
I was like, don't want to fill the insert.
Yeah, and you see how there's like that red tint.
Yeah.
So that
there's
red
like
tint.
blue and red, right?
Sorry.
You have like 2 different screws.
Yeah, we do, and it's got to do with the thickness of the board. So the red just like a quick visual indicator of that they're exactly the right millimeter height.
Is there a difference in thickness between the soft edge boards and the new traditional flat base boards?
Matt, when you're making a Bounty Hunter flat versus 3D, do you use the same inserts? Are they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the only difference then is in the machining.
I feel like I'm getting epoxy everywhere. I'm so sorry.
So you see this paper here?
Yeah, it catches it.
Yeah, so it catches it, and what this paper is in sublimation. Remember how there's that
waxy paper?
Yeah, that waxy paper. So we reuse it. And as I once heard AJ in our sublimation studio giving a tour, and he goes, "Yep, we use the whole buffalo."
We use the whole buffalo. Oh, so we're just straight covering the inserts now, and then we'll drill them out later.
You got it.
Maybe the shape of the snowboard.
Yeah, so you're gonna kind of like imagine what the snowboard would be.
So now he's working on getting alignment here. So there are alignment marks that were printed on the top sheet, and there's alignments on the mold that we're using. There's still a protective layer on this guy, but dude.
I had a little bit to do with this Gilson board that I'm gonna get.
Come on, man! You built this board.
I built this board. I've watched people build the board. So how long do the boards get squished for?
So we'll run a timer here. Since here, this is about to be a 60-minute timer. These 2 up here have just finished. There is really no consequence to running it too long because the epoxy is just like fully cured, but you don't want to pull it out early.
Yeah, let it cook.
Yeah, let it cook.
What is the step that gets messed up the most? Is it that step? Is it the edging, the cutting?
It's a good question. We've been doing a good job of reducing our blem rates pretty much everywhere. I'd say that like the highest consequence step to get messed up is like the later in the process that something gets messed up, the higher the consequence.
Yeah.
And the CNC is super dialed in now. There have been periods of time though when the CNC was acting up in years past, and like chewing cores up. And when
boards wrecked.
Dude, and when a CNC messes up, you're talking about a bit that's spinning at like 15,000 rotations a minute, you know, RPMs. And when something starts to get chewed or lifts up off a vacuum table, it just like shreds. It's insane. A lot of forces involved. Layup is a high consequence step for messing up. It's pretty dialed in now. I was telling you about we've had some variance in layup with the seasons, which is why we're putting in that massive air conditioning unit right now to make sure that it's always winter in here, just because like the moisture content can mess up with the bonding. 52 Bounty Hunter mold here. That's going to come off of this board.
Gotta be strong to work here.
Yeah.
So we got an hour till that's done.
Yup.
You want to show us your clothing operation real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Gilson, I didn't know this, makes their clothing in-house and their own stickers and probably so many other things. You get skateboards now too?
Yeah, the goal is to eliminate overstock waste. So every single thing that we build has a home. We don't want to be bringing in massive amounts of inventory from overseas and then, you know, not selling it and then having it be waste. It's crazy what's happening in the world right now. So this is a blank t-shirt that can become absolutely anything. And we use now, for all Gilson apparel, we use TS Designs as our partner. And they've all organic spun cotton and really amazing environmentally responsible dye processes here in the US. And so those blanks come to us, stored here, and then we can print truly whatever we want on a t-shirt with this direct-to-garment printing operation right here.
Their sticker machine makes my sticker machine look micro. This thing is insane.
Yeah, take this. That's pine grenade.
Pine grenade. All right, so the board is done in the press. Let's go pull it out.
Feel this? We taking this layer off now?
I want it to be smooth with it. Got it.
That was a hell of a catch, dude.
Smooth with it. Oh.
All right, we need to let this cool before we can send it to finishing, right? All right, for this process, I want to get you a mask.
We're dealing with fiberglass and cutting, so we got to get masked up and stuff. It's a little quieter in here. This gave us our sidewall.
Yep, exactly.
So we cut the shape out there and then we buffed it, or sanded it, essentially.
Yep, it's an aluminum oxide sander. So yeah, and you can see that this is, damn, Jack, you are so talented, it's crazy.
Dude.
I can't believe how fast you did that,
so
dude.
fast.
I know.
That was sick.
So awesome.
But now there's more work that needs to be done out there though.
Yep, now we're gonna go into tuning and finishing.
All right. He said it's time to put the snowboard through the board car wash, which is this machine. What do we got here?
I've never heard anyone call it a car wash before, but I like it. That's gonna stick. So this is a Jupiter Wintersteiger. This is a top of the line, truly top of the line in automated finishing. So you can see here, it's running a program now where it's going to bring the board in to the car wash. It's going to clamp down with vacuum pressure. It's getting it fully aligned here. And so now that board is going to be running over the stone grinder and the sander. So see what it's doing first. Woo. So it's not going to touch that stone because it's actually going to sand it first.
Which is down here.
Yep, so it's going to run it over.
And why are we sanding the base right now?
Great question. So this is going to basically just abrade the very, very top layer of material. It's going to take off any excess epoxy from the pressing process. It's going to make the edge super flat and flush with the base material. and it's going to prep it then for the stone grind, which is a far more accurate way to basically put in the base structure that's going to make it slide well in different conditions. All right, now time ready for the stone grind.
And you were telling me before you guys got this machine, which is like a house inside of a warehouse.
Yeah.
You did it all yourselves with this machine.
Yeah, this machine, you can see this one's still a little toasty from the fire. It's been refurbished. So we've had
Larry
this.
approved.
This is Larry approved, back fully refurbished. And then we've got this Reichman over here too. So we still have both these machines. They're in operation. You can use them for touch-ups, or if someone brings in their board for just like needs a quick core shot fix or a base tune or whatever it is, we can still do it by hand. But all new boards coming off the line get the full
treatment.
car wash treatment.
Yeah. Get a Gilson, get a car wash.
One of the things you'll notice here is that there's tons of liquid flying around everywhere. It's a biodegradable coolant. And what that's doing is it's actually making sure that the board always stays cool, even when it's going under this really high friction abrading with the sandpaper and then the cutting with the stone grinding wheel. And that's really important, because if you were to heat up the layers, I mean, it's amazing. You run steel over those sanders, and if it doesn't have a biodegradable coolant in, the steel will literally get so hot it turns red, then blue, and then the layers will separate.
It's literally delivering the board. Look at this. That's so cool. you literally just, like, you could have just took it this way. But
I know.
It doesn't open.
I know, and it's because it's so you can keep this thing running, so he's been able to stay over there working instead of having to unload this. And then ready for the next one.
Ready for the next one. So you let it sit here and dry?
No, we can take it out, right? But yeah, you can see how clean this base is now, how smooth it is with the edge.
Yeah.
Everything's perfect. Yeah,
Sharpen up.
Doing the base edges, getting them super sharp.
I didn't even think about
bevel in the, so if you feel this is still sharp right there, just rounding out that corner.
last piece.
Even with as many robots as we have in the facility, right? It's just like, there's so many things that humans can just do better.
Better, yeah. The final nice touches.
Yeah, exactly. And layup, like, can you imagine with that wetted, can you imagine having a robot do layup? I don't know how you do it. So that's the goal. You know, the cool thing too is about the way we think about this stuff and the way we talk about it as a team. You know, no one's like worried about a robot stealing their job. Yeah. Right? Because they're like, what robots could we get to help me do my job even better is the question, you know?
Yeah, not replace my job.
Yep. What do you think?
That's it.
Jack approved?
Good. Yeah,
Oh yeah, man.
Nailed it.
There you go. You want to take this?
Alright.
Thank you, Jack.
Of course. Did you make him look so light? The way you move him on the sander. That's so rad.
All right.
We gotta peel the top off and get it waxed.
We'll do, we'll do the wax first, then we'll peel the top.
All right.
Cool. All right, here you go.
Time to wax.
Careful, those edges are sharp now.
Appreciate it. Yeah, dude, we're gonna cut snow with this.
Jamie's head of QC, which means that she both inspects the product, but she also like goes and she's seriously, you want someone like serious OCD in charge of QC. She's really stood out in the role. Yeah.
I drive you guys nuts. I do. I can't help it. Do a couple swipes with this. I like to put pressure on whichever soft edge side I'm getting first when you're getting it flat. So I just do a quick swipe on each side. The same direction. And I flip it and I get the middle. Wherever you put pressure, the wax is going to apply that down.
And then the robot waxed it.
So the Wax Future is our new ultra red laser machine. It helps to wax the boards and melt all the wax into the holes of the structure. So that way it spreads it evenly, and if it gets down into the holes, it'll hold the wax better.
and they don't have to scrape it like traditional wax. Like there's like pros and cons. Like if you're at home, it's so fun to like wax your board, drink a beer, and be intimate with your snowboard. When you're running a snowboard company and you're setting out hundreds and hundreds of decks, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
also makes the ground super slippery. Like you can really wax in a factory environment can be dangerous too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this infrared waxer, it also, you know, you can get a tan if you want.
Dude, it feels so good.
Yeah, it's so warm. So before, when we used to have to iron it on, we would have to let it cool, and then we would scrape it with 2 different scrapers. We had a one for the soft edge, and we had a bigger one for the rest of the base, and there was wax everywhere, and it literally took, it probably took a good 20 to 30 minutes in my room per board. And I can do 2 boards at a time when I get to the tables now in about 5 minutes.
That's awesome.
So this is a game changer. I love the progress we made in my room since we reopened.
Removing the top sheet, which protects the design through all of
Yeah.
that making process.
Oh my goodness. This is looking sweet.
It's crazy how bright it is
I know.
after.
I like this combination of colors a lot.
Oh,
That's
the
sick.
Buckhouse Pro Model Bounty Hunter!
Let's go. It's sick.
So after that, I always take the air hose. I just
That's
take
it.
it to the desk. I QC it again. I buff it with the hand buffing pad, a Scotch-Brite pad, and then I put the edge wax on.
And then it gets packed up and shipped out.
Yeah, back it up, shrink wrap it, back it up, and ship it out.
So that is how, to give you this.
Thank you.
So that is how you literally start to finish make a snowboard, which
That's
is
right, man.
insane. That you figured that out, and then you got all these pieces and parts. The amount of times that snowboard was touched by somebody
I know.
and buffed and went
Yeah.
through a machine, and I don't know, the process is mind blowing to me,
It's
and
crazy.
incredible and
Still
rad.
me too. Yeah.
And I cannot wait to get on the board and test it out and rip
Yeah,
it.
dude.
So it's gonna be sick. Gilson has an incredible selection of boards, by the way, guys. You can see some of them right here. Check out their stuff. It's in the description. Thanks for having me
man.
out to the warehouse to see this process. I've never literally seen a board get made. So we made a bunch of rad content as well, so be ready for that. And thank you so
Dude,
much. And with
thank
that,
you,
Team
Johnathan.
Buckhouse, thanks for shredding with us. And as always, thanks for watching. Keep evolving. We'll see you tomorrow in another video because it's daily on the channel. We do stuff like this daily.